going to start off with how to prioritize self-care in your life and what that looks like for you. What did that look like for you prior to March 2020? And has that changed since then? And I'm going to start with Nicole on this one.
Yes, the old gal in the room.
I'm older.
So this is my 19th year teaching.
Oh, wow.
And I've seen, the pendulum swing a lot of different ways and then come back around.
Right.
And, self-care is really it's not a new concept, but talking about it and prioritizing it, I feel like became something that we put in the forefront during the pandemic because everybody was struggling so much. And I would say that in the past, especially being a mom, I have 2 kids, I did not do a good job of prioritizing my self-care. It was just kind of like, you just suck it up, you pull up your bootstraps, you do what you need to do for your family. My family always comes first, very, very involved in my church. That always comes first. I have a hard time saying no to doing things and helping people. So I was really not good at it. And then the pandemic hit. It really forced everyone to just stop and pause. And I did a lot of just self-reflection, and especially more of coming out of the pandemic, kind of when we were in the beginning of it.
Yeah.
In the midst of it, it was kind of like survival mode. And it was like, try to find ways to amuse yourself. And, so some of those things started to happen. And then when we were teaching and everything else, it became apparent that we were in a very stressful situation. And so we had to come up with things to help us. And so to me, I'd never thought about self-care, anything like that really, until kind of being in the middle of the crap.
Yeah.
Because it was the only way to get through it.
Sure.
And then I've continued it.
Well, and I mean, I think it's just sometimes you kind of got to hit those different experiences in your life. Like, this is no longer an option. Right. I've got to find ways to sustain myself because, I think some of the things that have been so hard about this is not having that end point. A lot of times when you're going through something hard, you're like, okay, this is going to be for 3 months. So I'm just going to charge through it and I'll get a breather. We haven't had that. We think it's gone and then it's, and so there's that continuation. And so you get to a point where like, all right, I got to put some practices in place because we're in this for the long haul.
Well, and the challenges have, I think, even increased or at least changed because the things that we were experiencing in March 2020, that was one set of challenges. Sure. But now we're sort of reaping some of the not so great benefits of the last 2 years. And we're trying to kind of reteach students how to be students. We're reteaching, we're having to teach students skills that they maybe didn't get in the year and a half prior. So in a lot of ways, it's become harder.
Right.
And if, my kind of thing was, listen, if my bucket is empty, then I can't fill anybody else's. 100%. And that was kind of like my ding, ding, ding moment.
Yeah, no, you see that you nailed that is such a exactly that. How can you show up for anybody else when you've got, and kids know, man, they sense it. And I think you hit on something so important there. I've heard from multiple people, and Kayli mentioned this in the fall, that this school year has been hard. I've heard it from a lot of my teachers, harder than the previous ones because the kids are emotionally spent. They've had all kinds of different dynamics that have affected them. They're behind socially, they're behind academically. And I don't know how North Carolina is, but in Texas, STAR test is back. I mean, they're testing those kids come the first week of May, and teachers are like, these kids aren't ready. They just aren't ready. This is going to be a disaster. So I think it's very interesting from state to state even too. But the empty bucket thing, that's a huge one. And we'll circle back around and talk. I have a few questions, but I want to let you all give feedback first, and then we'll let you all kind of chime in on some things that are coming up in my thought process as I hear you. Morgan, how about you?
Yeah, so this is my 3rd year of teaching. So my first year, everybody tells you when you go into teaching, your first year is going to be incredibly hard. Like you're just going to have to push through. Like it's going to be late nights. It's going to be working on the weekends. It's going to, because you're so new to everything.
Sure.
And you're just learning so much as you go along and learning a lot of what not to do. Sure. And so that first year, like you talked about having an end point, and I just kind of completely put self-care on the back burner because I was like, the end of my first year of teaching will be my end point. Like then I will have it figured out. And then the next year I can like, you know, go take care of myself. And then the pandemic happened and it was like, haha, joke's on you. You thought you were going to have it all figured out. Guess what? Year 2's coming and you have to do everything completely different. And you have to scrap everything that you did the first year because now
it doesn't apply.
Yeah, absolutely not, you know? And I taught 5th grade at the time. So we were trying to get them ready for EOGs at the end of the year. Yeah. And I feel like it was hard because that first year, I didn't put any kind of practices in place to take care of myself. And so by the time 2nd year rolled around, I already felt like burnt out.
Sure.
And then as we were going into 2nd year, it was helpful in that I feel like there was more of an understanding that things are different and things are really hard. Yeah. And so even like expectations that like were placed on us as teachers or placed on students were different. And so I was able to kind of like push through, but then going into my 3rd year, it's like, well, we're back in school, so everything's the same now. We're going to have the same social expectations of our students. We're going to have the same emotional expectations. We're going to have the same academic expectations. And if they're not meeting those, then you need to kind of step up your game and kind of fix it. And some of that pressure came from myself, honestly, internal pressure. So I feel like this 3rd year, and I've made so many mistakes along the way, but I just got to a point where I was like, this is just not sustainable. I can't do this. I am just pouring myself out into these kids and into my job and into relationships with people. And I'm not getting filled with anything. And I just got to a point where I was like, I love my job and I love my students, but I'm not able to be what they need me to be. And like, I'm not what I need me to be. And so I kind of got to this breaking point, to be honest with you. So Kayli and we took a beach trip.
Is this who you went with right before we recorded?
Yes. And I was going to... Because we went to the beach and it was just life-changing. And then we had the podcast the first time, which I was so excited. But then we also went to the beach a couple months later, which was another big trip. But I won't steal Morgan's thunder. But I'll add on later to that.
Okay. So
anybody listening, just go to the beach. You have a problem? Just go to the beach, okay? But that's
I can support
that. Puzzles, right, ladies?
Yes.
So I have to jump in. I'm so sorry, Morgan, but
No.
I heard about this weekend with these 2 early 20s girls, and they're like, yeah, like we did puzzles. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? When I was that age, I would have been bar hopping and clubbing it up and everything else. And they were doing puzzles.
Yeah. When it's all like, bucket. Okay. Yes, we were. She was like, were you at least drinking wine or something? I was like, no. And Morgan's parents were there. We were just all hanging out, just hanging out with the family. Yeah, it was supposed to be a girls' weekend. And my dad was like, you mind if I just stick around? We were like, sure, come on, Dad. So girls' weekend and Dad.
Hey, whatever's stressful. Exactly.
So we went to the beach and we honestly did a lot of like self-reflection and soul searching and just talking. I mean, I feel like you could have recorded us and had another little podcast episode because it was just like, but it was exactly what we needed. Like, we just needed to process everything that had happened. And it's been so nice. Like, me and Kayli have really built our friendship over the past like year or so. But it's just nice because she's in the same kind of stage of life.
Sure.
And so we were just able to relate on so many things. And after that weekend, we just kind of realized like we need to do something to change because, you know, we want to live our lives with joy and we don't want to live for the weekend and, you know, we want to love our jobs. And so, you know, we started going to yoga, which has been a huge thing, a huge game changer.
Yeah.
But I think just that, I think I left that weekend just knowing that like self-care isn't just, you know, like a face mask, you know, every now and then.
Right.
It really is about finding things that like feed your soul and prioritizing those things.
You hit that in the house. It's like, it's that deep soul stuff. And you said exactly that. It is. And you feel it. And, you know, and I think that's such an important distinction because it's the face mask and the nails done and all that's fun and that's fine. And there's a time for that, but that isn't it. I mean, there's times you got to really just like, I got to rest my bones and my soul. You know, I've got to rejuvenate deep. And so thanks for touching on that. And thanks for sharing about the weekend. Cause I remember that's just, and being willing to take the time. It's really hard to pull yourself out of a flow in a system, even when it's not working, to try and do something new, because you just we just aren't built for that. We're built in a society and a culture that's just like, go, 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 go. You know, you said it earlier, pull up the bootstraps, and we don't advocate enough. We're starting to. I mean, I think this last 2 years just woke us up to the fact, but advocating rest is important. Rest is necessary. You don't have to earn rest. We're not, you know, you have a right to rest and you don't have to defend that to anyone. And if you don't, jokes on everyone else because they're not getting the best version of you. I mean, they're just not. All right. Miss Kayli, you are up.
Yeah, I was definitely going to touch on the beach trip. So we had our first beach trip in the fall. You know, we had all these ideas of things that we were going to do coming back to school. But then I felt like when we came back, and I don't know if you ladies agree, but when we came back from winter break, I feel like the expectations changed dramatically.
Yes.
And Morgan kind of touched on this where it's like, we're back in person now, like things are normal. And I don't think that is necessarily how we started the school year. It was very much like, this is going to be a slow transition. You know, we're going to give the students time to get back to where they need to be and give you time. And so in the fall, like things were difficult, just trying to figure out what the students knew and what they didn't know, and just kind of getting acclimated to that. For me, my group of students this year in my second year was very different from last year. And so just figuring those things out was its own battle. But then it was like when we came back from winter break, it was like, all right, now you need to be writing all of these intervention plans. You need to be documenting all of this evidence, and you need to have all these data points, and testing is coming up, and meeting. And I was just like, whoa, like what happened to this transitional time? And I don't know if that was necessarily pressure from admin or the district or whatever, because we have a very supportive administration. And so I'd like to believe that it was probably more pressure from above from them. And, you know, even sometimes they're like, you know, don't shoot the messenger, but I need you to start doing this with the kids, this new intervention for math. We got a brand new intervention program. I think it was like the middle or end of the third quarter. And they're like, all right, start doing this with your kids. And so it was just so much at once. And so that's when we were like, we're going back to the beach. You know, we got to figure this out again. And that was when my aunt actually owns a yoga studio at the beach. And so we went just for fun. We had never really practiced before. And then we got back home and joined a local studio that week. And it sounds so simple to just start doing yoga, but for me, it has been, and I don't want to sound kind of cliche, but truly life-changing, because I would come home from work during that kind of middle of the year period, and I had absolutely nothing left. I would sit on the couch and I wouldn't really help with dinner. I wouldn't really help cleaning. And like Morgan was saying, I was not the best version of myself. I wasn't the best wife that I could be. I don't feel like I was the best friend and daughter and obviously teacher. And so like something had to give because I didn't like, I would say like who I was becoming, but I didn't like the situation that I was in. And I knew it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't sustainable. And so finding this outlet for me has been just so important. And I feel like I'm almost in a season of being selfish, which is really kind of the opposite of what we're taught or how I like to view myself. I don't like to think that I value myself, higher than others. But just like what Nicole was saying with the bucket, like I cannot pour out to others if I have nothing there. And it's so true.
Which is actually unselfish because you're taking the time to fill yourself up and give the best version of yourself for the good of your own health, but to everyone else too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I have noticed such a change really. And we've been doing it for maybe 2 months now. And it's not every day, but just like I'll come home and I have so much energy. I'll cook dinner, I'll do the dishes, and sometimes even some schoolwork, because I don't, it's crazy. Because sometimes I actually want to sit down and I want to plan a fun and engaging lesson for my students. And I really feel like I have been much more excited about school in the last couple of weeks. And I feel like I've had some really good days and some really successful lessons. And I'm like, this is what teaching is all about. And it really felt like all I had to do was start taking care of myself. And I just noticed so many more positive things coming out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that whole kind of misnomer. And I think it hits harder with women, at least in my experience that I've seen, that we just got to give. We take care of everybody. We make sure everybody's got everything they need, and we leave ourselves the scraps. And it doesn't lead down to a good road. It leads down to bitterness and martyrdom and martyr complex, not martyrdom, but yeah, I mean, and that whole thing. And again, no one's getting the best version of you. You're not living your best life, and no one around you is getting the best version of you. So I appreciate all your different stories and just that realization. And it doesn't have to be something that drastic or a huge time, because I think time is a big challenge too. I mean, Nicole, you've mentioned having kids. I mean, you're in a tough season, man. You're working, you've got kids, you're trying to keep up with all their activities. It's hard to find that space, but it's that recognition of like, this is not sustainable. I have got to, do this for myself, do this for those in my life, so that I can continue to be the best version of myself that I want to be. And this leads nicely into this next one, because I think it's really hard for you all in this profession to do this as well, but it's important. It's confidently setting boundaries. And yeah, I didn't know what boundaries were 2.5 years ago. So this has been a whole awakening season for me in that front. And I advise no one to wait until they're 50 plus years old to figure this out. Kayli, let's start with you on the boundaries piece.
Okay. So I would say that just like Morgan was saying, your first year of teaching is so hard. You're learning the curriculum. For me, my first year was 2020, right? The fall of 2020?
Yeah, fall of 2020.
Okay. Time flies by, but it's slow at the same time. And so we were virtual when I first started, which is obviously not what I was expecting at all. And so we spent so much time as a team making slides, for every lesson of every day. And we tried to, break it up with one another. But because it was my first year, I had to spend a lot of time looking at them. And even if someone else had made them, I had to go over them and really study them and learn the curriculum. And I would spend hours after school. And then once I got home from school, I would eat dinner and then do more school. And on the weekends, like Sundays were basically like at 12 o'clock, I ate some lunch and then it was time for school until dinner time. And to me, part of it, I was excited last year. So I feel like I didn't mind it at times because it was just new to me and I was excited to teach. But, that only lasts so long and that's not sustainable. No. And so going into my second year, I think there's been kind of natural boundaries set of just, I don't have to completely relearn the curriculum. I don't have to make all the slides. They're already made, which I'm so grateful for.
Sure.
Even one of my students asked me today, she was like, do you make the slides at night that we use during the day? And I was like, no, girl, these were made last year and I just look over them. She was like, and you kind of edit them and change them. And I was like, not really, no. So what we made last year, I might kind of, go off of it a little bit, but that is the foundation. And we do, make edits to our lessons and adapt as we need to. But just having that foundation set just immediate boundaries for me of like, I don't have to spend 8 hours because the things are already done.
Yeah.
But also part of it was just, I'm not willing to do that anymore.
Right.
And I mean, I think it's been more of a balance of, am I doing enough for my students this year? Because I'm spending such a drastic amount of time less like working on school than I did last year, that my students are lower this year. And so at times I have been like, am I doing all that I need to be doing? Should I be doing more to prepare for them and to reach their needs? And so that has been kind of challenging. But I've also gotten to the point, and maybe it's because I got closer with Nicole, but I'm like, nope, I don't have time for this. You have got to set a boundary. And last year, thinking that teachers could leave shortly after the bell was like baffling to me. Mm-hmm. And thinking that teachers didn't spend 8 hours on Sunday doing their work, I was like, how do you do it? When do you do it? Yeah. But it truly gets done. And I really don't know when it gets done, but it does. And it finds a way to get done. And so I feel like I've learned a lot this year of, you can stay on days that you'd like to stay. And when you choose to work and you want to work, and there's some days that you have to, and, you don't want to, but for the most part, once I'm home, I'm not doing school. The weekends, I'm not doing school. And, there's some days that I feel less prepared than maybe I would have, but they're still learning. And that's the most important thing. And so the boundaries have definitely helped me from last year to this year. And like you said, I'm so glad that I am learning this in my second year, because, you see some veteran teachers that stay for hours after school or come hours before school. And then you see others that leave at the bell. And so it's very confusing when you're a new teacher of the expectation. And it's like, are people going to think I'm not doing enough if I leave earlier? I'm not here by a certain time. And so just figuring out what works for you and what's expected of you. I mean, our contract hours are eight hours during the day. Yeah. And that's not a lot of time to get things done, all the things that we need to do. But trying to stick to those as much as I can has been helpful for sure. And my self-care and just enjoying the job and not resenting the time I'm spending on school.
Absolutely. And you hit on something important in our fall episode that I think is worth mentioning too, is, the most important thing that to you is that my kids feel safe, known, and loved. And I would say that is still has to be the priority in this time they're in, because I feel for these kids that are going to have to take these tests and are going to get back these crappy results. And not all crappy, but I mean, they're not going to be, there's all these measurements. I'm like, how is this helpful? What are we doing? And that's a whole
nother podcast.
That is a whole other season, probably.
I was going to say more than one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm like, what are we doing to actually help these poor things? And it just blows my mind. So I loved that you said that. And I think that's still the most important thing you can do for them. Absolutely. All right, Nicole, how about you and boundaries?
Well, I have been all over the place with my boundaries. Sometimes I think I have set better ones than others. One of my many hats is I oversee all of the beginning teachers and their mentors.
Oh, wow.
And these are two of my girls.
That's how you got these lovely ladies in your life. Okay.
And so, we actually had a whole meeting. I won't talk about my other jobs. There's a couple of different hats that I wear at school. Again, boundaries are not always my good, but I'm passionate about a lot of things. And I had a very bad experience my first several years teaching. And I kind of made it my mission to make sure that nobody else ever had that. And so anyway, I have learned so much from the beginning teachers, and it just blows me away that Kayli has figured it out in less than 2 years. And it took me so much longer. I've always been very good about when I leave school because I always had kids. And when I'm home and they get all of my attention.
Right.
However, my kids were with me at school. They went to school with me. And so there were many, many, many days that we were at school till 5:30, 6 o'clock. And so having to learn to say no, I actually had to, like last school year, I got really strict about it with myself saying, I'm leaving at this time.
Yeah.
And that's my goal. And I'm going to stick to it. And some days I was successful and other days not, but just because I'm not an early bird.
Me either. I hear you.
Kayli will tell you, I roll into the school about 10 minutes before the bell rings. I'm like waving to the parents in the carpool line, like, yep, it's me.
Don't worry, I'll be there by the time your kids get there.
It's fine. Because I stay a little bit later and I have all of my stuff already prepared for the next day.
Sure.
So, making sure that everything is done, but again, being like, no, I've got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And like my husband knows, like I do not bring schoolwork home. The only time I do is when it's like report card time.
Sure.
And I'm in a crunch and I have to do some grading and report cards. And then it's like, a couple of nights every school year where I might be like that. But just really like setting those firm limits on, I need to be out of here at a certain time. And when I leave.
Right.
Because I don't want to, I work to live, not live to work.
Right. Yes.
And like, my father, who I love with all my heart, really struggles with that. Well, I don't think he thinks he struggles with it, but he just lives to work. Like he would work all day long, every day. I mean, he'll work like, yeah, I worked 85 hours this week. I'm like, why?
Yeah. Oh,
why?
Yeah.
I'm like, I try to like 40, like 41. Like,
right. Y'all don't get paid enough to work more than 40. You don't get paid enough to work 40. I mean, that's another season.
That's another season. Yes. But so just like figuring that out. And then too, like if I'm trying to lead other teachers and I'm telling them, hey girls and guys, you got to set boundaries, but I'm not doing that myself, then I'm a hypocrite.
Well, and you hit on talk about being a mentor during this time, because being a mentor to new teachers in normal times is already something to take on. But in this time that's been where no one has any training for it, how has that been?
I cherish the time that I have with them probably more than anything else at school. It is my most favorite thing besides working with my students. It gives me so much life to work with them. And Kayli and I work on the same grade level. And something that our principal said I don't know if it was to one of us or both of us, but that he loved that she brings so much to the grade level because she has all these new, fresh, fun ideas. And, so like here she is probably thinking that like, oh, she's getting all this stuff from us old, experienced teachers. But like, I feel like I get so much from her, and that sometimes I feel like I'm getting way more than I'm giving, and then I feel bad because she comes up with these just amazing, super fun things. And I'm like, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
It really is a really, really special time. And, I always tell them at the beginning that this is Vegas. This is a place where you can cry, you can scream, you can curse, you can talk ugly about people if you need to, whatever you need to do, because everybody needs a safe place where they can just let it out, because sometimes you just have to get it out.
Yeah.
And then it's out and you're like, okay, now I'm good.
Right.
And so just making that a safe place where everybody feels that they can share and that they can ask questions and that they can just lean on each other. And I love the way that our meetings flow. I know other people sorry, that's my dog. People that have this job at other schools, they're a little more formal, and I'm just not that way. And, we just sit around the table, and the mentors and the beginning teachers and we like all just kind of spitball. And, there's usually a topic that we're focusing on, but like, it's not the Nicole show. it's, we're all giving. And so they're asking questions, they're asking for advice. We're all chiming in and saying things. And sometimes we, as even the veteran teachers, will get advice and things from the group. And so it's really such a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
I hope that the BTs feel that way.
Yeah.
I always try to strive. I tell them all the time, like, you tell me what you guys want to focus on, because I don't want this space to ever feel like it's one more meeting that you have to go to or one more thing. I want it to be a place that, like, oh my gosh, I can go here and I can just let it all out. I can be myself and I can get help for the things that I truly need to get help with.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question.
I think that's perfect. I love how you answered that, because you created a safe space for all of you.
I hope.
I think that's so
You
important.
do. Yes. Nicole is literally an angel sent from heaven. And she started as like a coworker and on my team and the, mentor coordinator, whatever the title is. But she has been my absolute ride or die these last 2 years. And I could get like emotional talking about it.
You cry together all the time.
I love that though. That's beautiful. You got to have that place, because we'll talk about this in a minute. If you don't release that stuff and let it flow, it will come back to bite. It'll go somewhere. It's going to go in here and it's going to show up in all kinds of ways you don't want to have to deal with. So I think that's
and something that is special about the relationship too is we are both Christians and we share our faith with each other.
Yeah.
And there are times when one of us is really struggling and all we have to do is go in and look at the other one and just go, I need you. And we just can pray together.
right.
And, which sometimes can be a little bit scary at work.
Sure.
So like we try to find a little spot and close the door. And sometimes people have walked in and been like, whoa.
One day we were sitting on the floor, like holding hands, and someone walked in. And we were like, this is really not what it seems.
It was a special moment. But Kayli is not that much older than my oldest child.
Oh, okay.
And, at first I felt like it was like that age gap.
Sure.
But now I'm like, this chick is one of my dear, we know way too much about each other. And this is somebody who, like, I tell things to that I really don't tell. Like, she knows a lot of the deep, dark secrets that nobody else knows. And it's just hilarious because she's, super young. That's because I'm young at heart.
Exactly.
Right?
It's all about that. It's all about that. Well, I love that. I love that you've shared that, because I think that's an important part of how you're able to get through times like we're going through right now.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, Morgan, talk about boundaries. Talk about what they've been talking about. Chime in on any of that. Are you part of this mentoring group too?
I am. I'm a BT3. So I'm in my third year teaching. So coming up. But I'm still like a beginning teacher, and I'm super beginning in terms of like teaching first grade. I taught fifth grade my first 2 years. And then
wow.
I changed schools and I changed districts and I changed grade levels. And so it's kind of like I'm in my first year all over again.
Wow. And did all that in this time. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But I chose it. So, but I think I made the right choice. But yeah, just, it's funny hearing their relationship, because they remind me so much of me and a teacher that was right across the hall from me. She was on my team in fifth grade, and we had the same kind of age gap, but the same kind of relationship where we were just each other's person. And I mean, she could just look at me and just know what kind of day I was having. And same for, when I looked at her. And so I think it's important, whether it's teaching or whatever your profession is, to have your people.
Right.
And to find like the people that bring joy, especially in teaching. It can be really easy to surround yourself with negative people.
Sure. And
kind of jump on the bandwagon of just hate and negativity. Yeah. And so it can be hard to find people that still are passionate about what they do and love the profession and just like bring joy every day. So yeah, but I'm a part of this little group.
Okay.
So I would say I did a really terrible job of setting boundaries my first like 2.5 years of teaching. I pretty much had no boundaries when it came to work. I had no emotional boundaries when it came to teaching, and no boundaries as far as time. The time-wise, I, dedicated so much of my time to school and to my students. And, some of it, like I talked about, like your first year of teaching, or even this year being so new to everything, it's like some of it's inevitable. You have to put in a lot of time up front. I mean, you don't know anything. And so it does take a lot of time and a lot of work to kind of build that knowledge and the resource base and all that stuff. But I also I prioritized it over everything else. I prioritized it over relationships with people and, my self-care. And even like within the past couple months, like I just, like I said, I kind of reached a point where like I knew something had to give. And so I just have set boundaries of, when I'm willing to work. And like Kayli said, our contract hours are 8 hours a day. And and I've just learned that, I'm not really willing to work more than that. If I have to, I'll, push through every once in a while, but like Kayli said, like it gets done. I genuinely don't know how, but it gets done. And I've also had to like set a boundary within myself because I'm very much a type A. I'm very much a planner. So like, I like to be planned out like a week ahead. Like I like to have copies ready like a week ahead and, or 2 weeks ahead if I'm feeling crazy. And I've just realized like it's okay to take it day by day. And I just had to give myself grace in that and just be like, if I have what I need for tomorrow, great. And if I don't, I'll come in 30 minutes early in the morning and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I've just like had to kind of learn to be okay with that in order to maintain this boundary of I'm going to leave at 4:30 and that's okay. And I'm not going to do school on the weekend and that's okay. And I was talking to Kayli earlier about this, but I learned that like I used to tell myself, even if I just do a couple hours of work on Sunday, that's a couple hours of my whole day. It's fine. But I realized like it built up a lot of resentment in me because I started to resent my job because it was taking away from like that, like, my Sunday, my like time of rest and like my time with my family and my husband and my friends. And so even 2 hours, like I would be annoyed, like leading up to it. Cause I'm like, I gotta do that thing this afternoon. I gotta get that lesson plan ready. And then even after I was done, I'd be like, oh, I can't believe I had to spend 2 hours of my Sunday doing it. And so then it was like taking up 5 hours of like just negative energy. So I just realized like that boundary of time is like kind of sacred to me. Like, I can't touch that because that's just what I need in order to like come into every day, like feeling refreshed and like ready to give 100%. And I touched on this a little bit, but like my first couple years of teaching, I had a really hard time separating myself emotionally from my kids, my classroom. And I had to learn, and I get a little bit emotional when I think about those first couple years because there was some really hard, like really heavy stuff. Yeah. But I've just learned to like make peace with the stuff that's out of my control. Sure. So that's been like a really big one this year is just like letting that go and just what I can control. Right. Is how my kids feel in the classroom. Yeah. And like you said, if they feel known and loved and protected and safe, like I'm good. I did my job. Yeah. I put in, the effort that I needed to. Right. And they got what they needed at the end of the day. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. And those kids will remember that. I mean, and I think, I think it's really hard because so much is asked of y'all, but you have them for, 5 to 6 hours a day. That's all you've got control over. You've got no
Right.
control over the environment they come home to, the environment they came from. You don't have a lot of control there. And so you've got to release, and that's hard. I mean, when you've got a heart, because you all have a heart for kids, you wouldn't be doing this. And so to be able to separate that, I think that takes a lot of like, okay, how do I do this? How do I not? Because that will wear you out quicker than anything, especially in the time you're out right now is just, but that's a tough one. I can, and good for you for getting on it early. Because I think, you guys talked about it earlier, there's a lot of cynicism amongst a lot of teachers, and kids feel that, you talk to my kids to this day, they can tell you who all the cranky teachers were. And I think it's just a lot of it has to do with how you manage your time and how emotionally spent you get and having the boundaries and, all this, the care in place so that it doesn't drain you. Thanks for sharing that, Morgan, and being vulnerable about that. I appreciate that. I think that going into this next one, it's taking care of our emotional health as much as our physical health and some practices you use to do that. One thing I'll say that I'm hearing from all of you that I think is so important in any work environment is it feeling like it's a healthy work environment. Knowing every day that you're walking into a healthy work environment with people that you can go to, that you can trust, that you can feel safe with, is a game changer in terms of how you walk into a day, let alone because you all have enough going on with what you're walking into your classroom and facing. And it feels like you've really created that, which I love that, because I think that is one of the things that's probably sustaining all three of you right now is knowing that you have that. Nicole, let's start with you. Taking care of emotional health as much as physical health and some practices you use to help you with that.
Well, some of them are more serious and some of them maybe are less serious. And I actually cringed a little bit when you guys start talking about the nails and the masks. I actually had that on my list.
That's okay. Sometimes that's good. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
I was like,
girl, it's still on my list too. I'm not
absolutely. You don't have to remove that.
Okay.
No. All the
We
things.
all need that.
Okay. All right.
What feels one person may not feel another, but that doesn't mean it doesn't feel you.
Right. And it really depends on, what it is that I need at that time.
Sure.
Sometimes I just feel like I've neglected myself,
right,
and that I've had no time, that I've given and given and given. And there was a day I had gone through, Kayli knows, I had a extremely traumatic, I don't know, week and a half or something, and including the death of a dog and it was all, something happened with one of my kids. It was just really, really rough. And I felt like I was on the verge of a breakdown, especially something was happening with my son that was just really, really upsetting. And I took a day, and, you're a mom, so you probably get this. We go and go and go and go. We give and give and give. And then it's especially when the kids are younger, you don't, my gosh, if you can pee without somebody being in the bathroom with you,
right.
That's a miracle.
And sometimes you just lock the door so they can't come in. You can have 5 minutes.
Yes. My kids are 12 and 21, and I still cannot take a shower without somebody sticking their head in hey, mom, can we talk about my electives for next year? Can you get out? Can I just shower? So really taking the time, and that weekend I just was so done.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent the day doing some other things that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But one of them was I gave myself a face mask, and I soaked my feet, and I put a little foot mask on. I have this little massager thing for my feet.
Yeah.
And I just did a little cheesy self-care and did my nails. Yes. And it really was because I never do that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So that was really, really nice. Something else that sometimes I just need to sit in my car, in my driveway
Mm-hmm.
by myself
Yeah.
and like listen to music or like watch TikTok
Yep.
without anybody talking to me or asking me things or whatever else.
Yeah.
One of my very, very dearest friends, her and I, and she's been through a lot too. And so we call them hot tub dates.
Mm.
And the gym that we go to has a hot tub. And so sometimes like we go to the gym at like 9:00 at night.
Yeah.
And we go sit in the hot tub for an hour and we just spill all of the things. And that is so cathartic.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
It's like nice and warm. But it's really more about the company.
Sure.
Because one thing that I have learned, and it took me a very long time to figure this out, and I'm glad that these girls have figured it out. I never had a lot of girlfriends.
Mm.
And so for a very long time, I really didn't have many. And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, early 30s that I met this friend that I'm talking about that I do the hot tub dates with. And I realized that it is so important to have friends.
Yeah.
And friends that are like your ride or die. I can tell you anything. You can tell me anything. You don't judge me, but you will tell me the truth.
Right.
And we love each other's children like they're our own. And there's no judgment, but there's caring and just a very close friend.
Yeah.
And so having that kind of a relationship, I think is self-care in itself, that you just have this person that, I can be like so honest with, and they're not going to be like, you are such an asshole. You're a horrible person. And they just get it.
Right.
So that's a huge one. One of my, probably my most favorite thing to do. Like if you're like, Nicole, what do you want to do? You can do whatever you want. My answer is going to be, I want to read. I read an incessant amount of books.
Okay.
And so sometimes just having nobody bother me and being able to just like read my book that I want to read is just so, it's like an escape.
Mm-hmm.
And it's relaxing. And I just go off in these stories. And that is incredibly just calming. And spending time, as cheesy as it sounds, just cuddling with my husband or my kids and my dog and just getting that physical contact.
Yeah. There's medical evidence of the value of that.
Yes. And just and my dog, I swear I need to register her as an emotional support animal because she knows. She is
they know. They sense it.
She's like, oh, she's struggling right now. Let me come press my body up against her. Just taking that time and I'm not a super affectionate person, on the regular. It's not my love language. But it is my husband's. But I have found that taking that time, especially when I'm feeling very overwhelmed and very stressed and being able to verbalize it and say to him, I am very stressed. I am very anxious and worried right now, whatever. And just being able to verbalize whatever it is a lot of times is so freeing.
Yeah.
Because then a lot of times when I say things out loud, I'm like, it's actually not that big of a deal. Or he can help me talk through situations or whatever. Or just like I said, just that intimate touch of cuddling together and just showing each other that love is very, very just, healing.
Yeah. Well, you hit on something really important. A couple really important things is when you can't process your emotions or feelings until you've acknowledged them and named them. And there's so much power in just naming that. Or even when you're trying to find it, hashing it out with somebody who knows you, that can sometimes help you name it. Two, one of the biggest, when I am stressed or just frazzled, my husband is one of the best huggers on the planet. Kayli can attest to this. He's kind of famous for his hugs. He's 6'3", 250 pounds, and he just wraps himself around you and squeezes. And he will just do that. And it just grounds me. It just is like, and I think there's a lot of power in that kind of connection with people. So I think those are so important. And you hit on the other thing too. I think we don't always think of this, but you're so true. It's making that time for those girlfriends. That is self-care. That is self-care. It's making time and prioritizing that. And I've been multiple conversations with women over the last almost year now of where that's been named as something that has been so important and life-changing for them. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Morgan, how about you? Some practices you put in place to help you process your emotional health as well as your physical health.
Yeah. So one of the newest ones for me has been yoga, which is honestly crazy for me to say out loud, because had you told me 3 months ago that I would do yoga, I mean, that's laughable. I mean, it was a personality trait that I hated moving. I did not just physical, I not just exercise. I don't like to move and sweat. And I did a hot yoga class. Okay.
Oh, wow. You went big.
Sweat. So, but that has been I feel like I kind of put myself into this box of I don't exercise. I don't like exercise. It doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't do anything for me emotionally. Some people love it, says it gets endorphins, and not happening for me. And then I went to that yoga class at the beach, and it was so eye-opening, because I was I feel incredible. I was
wow,
I feel like my mind is quiet, and that is
so
never
much
the case.
Power in that. Yeah,
it was crazy. And so, and then I was just I have to have that more. Mm-hmm. So then I started going regularly, and now I try to go 3 times a week, but I feel like that has helped me learn kind of the connection between your physical body and emotions.
Yeah.
Because I started to realize that at school, you're going to have hard days.
Sure.
And what's kind of difficult about working with kids sometimes is that you have to kind of be the rock.
Yeah.
And they're going to have emotional outbursts because they're learning how to deal with that. They're learning how to process anger and frustration, and they're learning how to process when they lose at a game. Yeah. And sometimes that results in, not the best reactions from them. Mm-hmm. But as their teacher and the adult that they're leaning on, you have to kind of control your own emotions and your own frustration and anger and sadness, and kind of keep that in so that you can help them process.
Right.
And so I kind of realized that physically, even though I feel really tired at the end of the day, a lot of times I actually have a lot of
you carry all that in there
from
with
those
you.
Heightened emotions.
Right.
That I kind of got to get out sometimes.
Yeah.
And yoga has been a really big one for me in kind of getting that out through a physical exercise that also kind of helps me quiet my mind.
Yeah.
So that has been really, really big. And then of course, like Nicole said, I mean, I love a good face mask. Okay. I'm not saying that they don't
There
help.
is nothing wrong with that.
No.
Absolutely.
Getting your nails done every once in a while, taking a bubble bath. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, just taking that time for me physically. And actually, when I was in a yoga class a few weeks ago, the instructor talked about how a lot of times during our days, we feel overstimulated. And I had never really thought about that before. But when she said that, I just feel like a light clicked for me, because so much of the day teaching, I feel overstimulated. I've got 19 little bodies running around me. All their energy is around me.
Oh my gosh. So much in one room.
Yeah. I mean, half of them are raising their hand. Miss Bell. I'm like, I can see your hand. You don't have to say my name. But it's just, and they constantly need and I mean, they're 6 years old, so I can't blame them. But I feel overstimulated. Right. And so sometimes taking a bubble bath, or sometimes I'll just drive home in the car, because I have a long drive. It's 45 minutes. And I'll realize half an hour into it that I haven't said a word. There's no music playing. It's just been silent. And sometimes that's what I need. Yeah. Is just to not be overstimulated. Right. And to just have quiet and kind of
just take a breath
for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And like Nicole said, I'm also a big reader. And that's something I've tried to make more time for, because I love to read. I have since I was little. And there's something about having just an actual book. I've never been a Kindle person, but an actual book in your hand.
Me
and just,
too.
like, sitting under like a lamp and just like,
Yeah.
it's peaceful. And it's just, I don't know. It's such a good escape. So
yeah, I feel like we get so many screens. I love having the books.
Yes.
Like we could be on a screen all the time.
But that print and even like just the smell of a book, I don't know. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Kayli.
Yeah, I feel like they basically took all my thoughts and said them already. I was like, man, I was going to say that. But the word overstimulated has stood out to me recently too. And I don't remember who first said it. I don't think it was at the yoga class, but I think I was there with Morgan when they said that. And I was like, yes.
That.
But when whoever I heard it from recently, when they said that word, I was like, that is teaching. And
yeah.
that is just, you're getting pulled in so many different directions. And, there's some students that all of us have that are going through a lot at home. And so their emotions are like even bigger than what they normally are. And like, I know some situations that make me really upset and I want to kick something because of it too. But like Morgan was saying, you just can't, and you have to take care of yourself. And it's like, you come home and you just need quiet. And I, like Nicole said, I like to sit in the car too. And Garrett will come out there and be like, are you okay? What are you doing out here? And I had to tell him that is just the time I need. Like, I just need that silence. And like Morgan said, I have driven home in complete silence. And then you don't even realize it. And you're like, oh, wait, man, like, I normally like music, but sometimes you just don't. Yeah. And obviously, like I said, with yoga, that has been a huge thing for me physically, but mostly mentally. Yeah. I played a college sport and I always viewed myself as an athlete. That physical activity was very important to me. So I always tried to get Morgan in on something and she was like not doing it. So I got her into yoga. So that's a win. But yoga was kind of like what we did on our off day. So I feel like I didn't really respect the practice very much. I was like, that's just stretching. That's not really like mentally, or not mentally, but like physically taxing and pushing your bodies. But I was so wrong. And what I love about it is that I can, push my body. I've always liked that, being an athlete and trying to get better. And I've seen myself get better in the last couple weeks. And Morgan has been whipping out some crow poses and getting shouted out by our instructor. So I know she's getting better. So it's been so cool to push my body in a different way, but even more so to just feel the mental release. And that is just so much more valuable to me in this stage than the physical. And it's like, I can push my body and, see my body do new things that I've never done before. But just, having all these emotions and big feelings that we have to hold in all day. And then just coming to, like they say, come to the mat and leave it all on the mat. And it really is true. It's like when I leave there, it's just gone. Right. And I can move on about my day. And it's just such a change. And so I'm just really grateful that I have kind of found that outlet for me, to prioritize my physical health, but even more so my mental health for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And y'all brought up some great points about that. It's like that stuff, all those, I haven't heard it said before, the overstimulation, but oh my gosh, 100%, because you're not just working one-on-one with somebody. You've got all these little bodies and little emotions, and the overstimulation. Oh my gosh. Yes. For like 6 straight hours plus. And as we talked about earlier, if you don't release it, it just stays in there. And it's going to show up. You're going to get sick. Your back's going to hurt. Why is my back hurt? So much is stress related, just stored in your body. So being able to find those things where you can release that and have that outlet is so important. Thanks so much for speaking to that. We are down to our rapid fire, ladies. So I'm going to ask each of you to name 5 activities that nourish you and 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months. And Nicole, let's start with you.
All right. I would say like prayer and listening to worship music, spending time with my loved ones, being able to just relax and not have anything to do.
Yeah.
Except for things that I want to do. The nourishing is a lot from just spending time with people who love me and who get me and who don't judge. And I've really like over the years not weeded out, that sounds bad, but like, we kind of like circled our wagons during COVID and with a lot of the racial stuff. I'm in an interracial marriage and there were just a lot of things that we saw. And so we kind of had to sort of let some people go.
Yeah.
So just like really just surrounding myself with people that really just love me, love my kids, love my husband, and just being able to spend that time. And like, especially like with my grandma and like being able to just spend time with her and like hear stories from like when she was growing up and like learning like her recipes, like that kind of just super close quality time, I feel like is so, so, so important. And definitely like just the prayer and the worship. And that's just 3. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, that's fine. And you hit on something I think is so important, and that's surrounding yourself with people. I think we get this idea in our heads, especially as faith-based people, that we've got to like or include everybody.
Mm-hmm. No,
you don't. You don't. And that's, don't be hateful, but don't allow people that spew poison in either. Yeah. Allow people on your island that are for you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're mean to the others. You're just not going to make space for them on your island, in your safe space. And I think that we've finally kind of started talking about that. But I went through my house a couple of weeks ago and I took down all the things hanging on my walls that were obligatory. Like my grandma gave this to me, so I got to do this. Or my adopted mom gave this to me. No, I think it's ugly. I don't want to have it up. And they never come visit me anyway. So, but I think we do the same thing with relationships. Well, and it's like, they are not for me. They don't understand me. It's not safe. And I think, so thank you for speaking to that. Cause I think that's an important part of our emotional health. That's an important part of our safety and our family safety.
Yeah. So. I mean, it's all about protecting myself and protecting my family. And sometimes that means having to separate from people. So I guess maybe that is sort of a nourishing thing, is just kind of only spending time with people that are really in our corner, and then just the type of quality time that we're spending. And sometimes, what nourishes me is not leaving my house for 2 days and not getting out of my pajamas.
Absolutely. 100%.
Because man, when Morgan was talking about being overstimulated, I have never verbalized it, but that is 100%.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Like it is. Sometimes I come home and like, please just don't anybody talk to me for like half an hour.
Yeah.
So that is huge. And as far as, I think the other question was
5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Oh gosh. Okay. I want to feel like I have made the world a better place, even if it's just for one person.
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel like I have not wasted time with the people that I love, making it a priority to spend time with the people that I really, really care about, because, unfortunately you start losing people and you realize how short life is.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that, instead of saying like, oh gosh, I need to go see my grandma or whatever, like, no, I get in the car and I drive.
Right.
I don't want to look back and say, oh, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. So just really being intentional about that. I want to feel like I have loved and been loved, by my family, by my friends, by my students. And I want to feel like I have worked to, as much as I can in my little corner of the world, work to just make sure that everybody has a voice and that everybody is, like I said, I mentioned like justice and just equality, and all of that is such a huge, it's like my soapbox.
But mine too. I understand that.
Just making sure that everybody, and that goes as far as like, even like my students, knowing that they are seen They are heard. They are known. They are loved for exactly who they are. And that's something
Yes.
that gets me like really deep. Because I feel like so many people, from children to adults, they don't feel like they can be themselves.
Yeah.
And that they're not accepted, and that they can't just be free to be them, and that they have to put on this mask. And just to know that like everybody is unique and different, and they're exactly the way God made them to be in his
Amen.
image.
Yep.
And that he makes no mistakes, and that he, you know, and just that's what, like, I can't do that at work. I can't talk to them about God, but I hope that that they see that through me.
Right.
And that they feel that Christ-like love of just that loving and acceptance, and that no matter what they've been through or what they're going to go through, that they are loved, and that they are safe, and that they're protected, and that they are seen.
Yes.
And I feel like there are just so many people that don't feel seen, and that just needs. So yeah.
Thank you for that. That was really powerful and so important. And I live in a state where a lot of kids and families are not protected well by legislation here that makes me crazy.
Yes.
So thank you for talking about that. I think that's so important. All right, Miss Kayli, 5 activities that nourish you and 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Okay, well, I don't want to follow that because I feel like mine is not nearly as deep. But before I say that, I did want to just kind of put out there that we've talked about how teaching is really hard. But what Nicole was saying is exactly why we do it. So I don't want anyone to hear this podcast and think like teachers hate their jobs. I feel like that is kind of the conversation that people hear.
Yeah.
We still choose to do it. And I really do love teaching. And knowing that I can do all of the things that Nicole just mentioned, and I can make a difference in their lives, and I can make them feel loved, and I can make them excited to go to school and to just smile and have fun. Like the 3 of us, we are kind of crazy. And like we see other teachers at the school, and like their class is in a nice line and all quiet. And we're like, you know, it must be nice. Like that's kind of a different world that we're living in over here. But I think part of that is just like us being ourselves, and like when we're ourselves, our students feel that they have a place to be themselves as well. And so
thank you.
I know that's not what you asked.
No, but that's so important because kids know, they sense it. They sense if they're getting the real version of you and if it's safe for them. They sense that. So thank you for mentioning that. That's so important.
So even though it can be so difficult, especially now, and as a beginning teacher, I did just want to kind of say that of like, I still love teaching so much. And like, yes, there's days where I don't love it as much. And I'm like, man, this is really hard. But I think that's with every profession. And I think it's such an honorable profession and something that I feel honored to be able to do, and a role that I don't take lightly. And so, I just kind of want to say that. But anyway, what Nicole said exactly was how I felt too, of just quality time with people is so nourishing. And I think it's been hard. I know it's supposed to be rapid fire. I'm sorry.
Okay. No time limit.
Leaving college and having all of those people. I mean, Kylie being one of them, one of my very best friends. And then, you know, getting married and moving to a new town. None of my close friends are, you know, very close in proximity anymore. And I feel like Nicole reminds me so much of Kylie, which is why I think I was so drawn to her at first. And so like finding Nicole last year and just having that person at school, but also in life. And then Morgan and I have only been friends for like a year, but I feel like people would have no idea because of how close we've gotten. And so like finding those people this past year or two has been just so important to me. But like Nicole said, it's also like making the time to spend or to reach out to those other people in my life. So just because they're not, you know, within 30 minutes, I still want to keep those relationships, and having those conversations is still nourishing, even if they're over the phone. So just the quality time with friends and with family and the intentional conversations with them is so important to me. But also, you know, kind of more service level, like yoga, like we've said, is very nourishing to me. I love taking not really baths, but like hot showers, where my skin's red when I get out of there. Like that is the sign of a successful bath. Right before bed, that's such a time that I enjoy for myself. And then also, like Nicole said, like having quiet time or journaling or prayer or worship music. My faith is something that really grounds me. And I think that's something that's really pushed me and kept me going through hard times like this, is knowing that I have a greater purpose and that I'm here for a reason at the school and the grade level. And these students were handpicked to be in my class. So all of those things are very nourishing to me. And then 5 words that I would like to feel. My word of the year is well-rounded. I like to pick a word at the beginning of the year. And I feel like I just kind of want to be in a place where I'm nourishing, my emotional, physical, spiritual, all of the different healths. I want to feel joyful. I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel connected to my community, whether that's at school or at church, or even just kind of in my town as I get to know this new place where I'm living. And then I couldn't really figure out what word I was looking for, but kind of settled, I guess. I feel like there's been a lot of transition in the last couple years. And I think I'm getting there and just kind of figuring out routines and what life is like for me now, being married and being a teacher. And it's like, I definitely want to grow my family within the next couple of years. So I feel like I'm in a space where I'm trying to take care of myself first before I try to start, bringing in little humans to take care of. And so I just kind of want to set those positive, habits and actions in my life that I want to continue forever. So I feel like I'm in a situation of trying to figure out what that looks like for me and just kind of getting settled. And I don't know, I guess that's the word that I could come up with, or stable, something like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. I think you said that really well. All right, Morgan, bring us home. 5 activities that nourish you.
Okay, before I start, and I'll make this quick, I promise, but I have to tell a little story because Kayli was talking about how we've only been friends for like a year, but nobody would know it. So today I was talking to my students and they know Miss Scott. Miss Scott stops in sometimes, and I was talking to them about, I was going to let them pick their own partners. And we were talking about, you can choose to work with a friend, but there are some friends that you can focus with and get things done. And there are some that, are more just like recess friends. And they were like Miss Scott. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, because you two get a little silly. So you probably can't like work together. And I was like, exactly. Like Miss Scott. I was like, yeah, I shouldn't choose to work with Miss Scott. She's a recess friend. I got to wait for recess. That was cute.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
I know.
I kind of feel offended. I don't know. I feel like I need to go talk to them and kind of clear the air.
They said it about both of us, okay? They said mutually we are recess friends. That's okay.
Well, Nicole and I are at recess together, and that is a crazy time. So I'm sure if you were there, it would be even crazier.
Wild recess.
Kind of like doing yoga in the hallway, girls.
Yes. After school hours, some downward dog.
Rudy poppin'.
Okay. Activities that nourish. So speaking of downward dog, definitely yoga. I already touched on that. But yeah, that's been a really big one for me. And I was just thinking of one that I didn't have written down as we were talking, but for me, it's been like laughter, like just like loosening up with my students, like, and just like joking with them. And I've really just over the past couple weeks just realized like school is coming to an end, and that is like really exciting. But for these kids, like, they're only going to get one first grade year.
Right.
So like,
and one first grade teacher.
Yeah. And so, my classroom might not be like quiet all the time, and we might not all be on task all the time, but it's okay to laugh with them. And so just like loosening up and just like laughing in the classroom and like coming home and hanging out with my husband and like playing a game and like, making each other laugh. Like that's just been a big one for me lately, is just like finding people that like just bring out that joy and that like, just I can be free with. And so laughter's been a big one.
Okay.
And then time with friends and family. That's always something that has just like been so nourishing. Just spending like time with people that love you and just make you
Yeah.
feel loved and like your best self. And then, I mean, still like that self-care, like that physical self-care of just like showing yourself love, like,
Yes.
you know, the bubble bath and the face mask and doing that when I can. So those are some things that nourish. And then 5 things that I want to feel. I said at peace.
Mm.
I just feel like with the past couple years, they've just been so crazy and there's been so much change. And like Kayli, I got married within the past couple of years and moved away from my college town and, you know, changed, you know, grade levels and bought a house, and there's just been like so much change. And so just like feeling at peace with like where I'm at in life and just feeling peaceful. I also put present. I feel like I talked about, like the year is coming to an end and it could be so easy to just like wish away this time and like count down like how many weeks left until summer, and summer is going to be great. But I just want to be present, like whether, you know, it's April or it's June, like I just want to not constantly be looking towards like what's next. And just be present where I'm at and just enjoy like what's around me at the moment. And kind of like with that, I put grounded. I just, sometimes my mind can race, and I just want to like feel over this, you know, over the next, I mean, year, 2 years, like just grounded and like knowing who I am. And then I also put confident. I think it's my 5th one, but I said confident. Like, I just want to feel confident in that, you know, I've done what I can to make my kids feel loved and make them feel safe and make them feel proud of themselves, whether that's, you know, they learned how to tie their shoes in 1st grade or they learned all their vowel teams, you know? I mean, some kids, I could care less if they learn all the vowel teams. You can tie your shoes. Like that's great. So I just want to feel like confident that I have done what I can to change their lives for the better, even just like a little bit, and just confident in the person that I am and the person that I'm continuing to grow into. So,
that's great. And, you know, thank you so much, all 3 of you, for joining me tonight. I know we got to get you off so you all can go to bed and get your rest for another day. But I think what I've loved so much about this episode is I can see why you all are navigating this so well, because you show up for each other, and you know how to show up for each other. And you know how to show up, and you've learned how to show up for yourself. And there's so much power in that, and what you can navigate when you feel like you've got those 2 things in place.